Let's say you have an idea and you want to get that the senior leadership team actually agrees on it. The question is, will they, and how can you convince them? We have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Byron McFarland.
Well, thank you, Niels. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much for coming back. So, welcome back to round number two, basically. When you now stand in front of a leadership team, you're usually pretty well prepared. What happens when you
Yes.
say, look, I have this vision, this is well prepared. I'm not doing anything off the cuff here. So it's well prepared, it's well explained, it's well founded in facts. And suddenly you realize they say something like, doesn't fit our strategy. And they just put it down within 3 words or 5 words. How do you deal with that?
Well, I would counsel the CEO to first have met one on one with the senior leadership team and understand their vision for the organization before I was to try to dictate mine. So I counsel my clients to use what they call psychological reciprocity, which is to the extent that I care about you, your well being, and your happiness, chances are you're going to care about mine. So
Yes.
I would, as a CEO, I would first ask my team, how do you feel about the organization? What do you feel the organization is capable of? How do you how do you experience yourself moving into more and more responsibility
Mm.
and try to get them to explain their vision for themselves in the organization, which then makes them bought into the to what you want to do. More likely they'll buy into that.
Excellent.
So
Do you think that some CEOs are too full of themselves with thinking they know it all and just put things forward?
I think that most people get nervous about asking others how they feel.
Hmm.
There's a concern about, am I crossing a line? Am I going beyond the employer employee relationship? And I would say that that would be probably as common as ego.
Mm.
The
Absolutely.
people the people I deal with tend to be uncertain as to, was it okay for me to do that?
Hmm. Yeah.
And as opposed to, well, why would I want them to be part of this of the creation of the story?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. What would you say when the following happens? And that is something which I had to observe in one M&A case. There was a really well rolled out plan. And then someone countered it and said, look, I have a different feeling about this. And then they came up with their opinion. However, they said, I don't think we should proceed because I think it's a wrong decision, which means that person put their personal feelings and opinion over facts. How do you deal with the situation when you have the facts on your side, which you can prove with data, science, evidence, and someone says, yeah, it's all nice, but my feeling simply says, nah, feels a bit off. How do you deal with that?
well, that's a really challenging one. I think most people are expressing their feelings based on instinct and a set of facts that they're interpreting.
Mm,
So I want to give the person the benefit of the doubt. If they're in the room, then they probably earned a seat.
mm,
And if
that's true.
they've earned a seat, then their voice should be heard. And ideally, in a meeting with a senior leadership team, there would be enough trust and confidence that we can hash it out and have the robust discussion. And then if we don't agree at the end, that's fine. But one of us is buying into the other one's outcome, or they're
Mm.
moving on, or they're moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about people who say, look, I don't have to convince my whole senior leadership team. I think I just need the majority. And when I get the majority by vote on my side, I can proceed from there. Yes or no?
Feels like a half measure and half likely to win.
Mm,
I would, if I was in that situation, I would go one to one with the people and ask them how they feel about what it is that you're trying to do. Have them express their concerns, unpack their fears, their anxieties, their resistance, and really give it an opportunity to come into a, like, say, like an open environment of this is how we can probably move forward together. Find a compromise, because you really need to talk it through. You need the whole team bought in. If you don't have the
mm.
whole team bought in, you're not likely to achieve the ultimate objective.
Yeah. So how do you do with people? You probably coach a lot of CEOs so far. How do you do with people who say, look, this whole, how do you feel? What are your feelings? Some people might say, look, I am just not the person to do this. I am more the CFO kind of person. I'm more the financial person. I'm more the numbers person here. So this whole how do you feel, even if they answer, I just don't know what to say. So how do you deal with people who say, I am just not the kind of person to do that?
I'd say you're not a very good CEO.
That's a tough one. So,
I
but
mean, the
still, when the
CEO is
person,
supposed the CEO
yeah,
is supposed to be a big relationship person. The
mm-hmm,
CEO is either A, very compelling and people will automatically want to follow them, or B, they're very convincing and that they have something that they want to do. They get buy-in from the stakeholders. And if they see resistance, then they're probably figuring out a way to resolve that resistance so they can get the appearance of complete buy-in on the initiative. So I find the really good CEOs to be very compelling and
mm-hmm.
convincing.
Do you think people can learn to be very convincing, or is it something they have or don't have?
As children, we are overcoming objections without thinking about it. We persist as children.
Mm-hmm.
Kids ask and ask and ask until they get what they want. And for the children who don't get beat down by their parents that just stop bothering me, the parents allow the children to explore their feelings and be persistent. Those tend to be better leaders because they've overcome the resistance and they're willing to continue until the resistance has been overcome
Yeah.
if they're seeing a lot of resistance. So I think that it tends to be the result of their what do they call it? Nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if we've had to overcome a lot of obstacles, then you're probably going to be very persistent and you're going to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
Emotional safety is tough, though. You know, some people don't feel comfortable expressing themselves to others, and I find that the place to test that is in peer groups. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
business owner and you're not sure if you're really capable of asking those questions, get into a peer group where you're going to be forced to ask questions of your peers.
Yeah, excellent. So how do you deal with that situation? Let's say you convince the vast majority of your leadership team, and there's basically just one person left who's not that convinced. However, in their department, which is, for example, the IT department, they hold opinion leadership. So they are probably you have 15 people in your senior leadership team, 14 out of 15 are convinced, but the one person that's still nagging about it is one where they can cause real trouble if they are not on board. How to deal with that situation?
Well, it seems like that person should have been um, collaborated with early on if they're that key to the outcome.
Mm,
So I think that whenever you're pursuing change, which strategies change, there needs to be an assessment of who do I need to get buy-in from early.
hmm
And if I needed buy-in early from IT, then I would go to IT early and understand IT's position on this and try to get IT to figure out a way for this to work. That would be my approach is to
Yeah.
how can we make this work in a manner that you see as being feasible,
Mm,
and then we'll
absolutely.
leave in that into the to the approach.
Yeah.
It's when you get kind of myopic and you don't bring in other ideas that you tend to get a lot of resistance because people don't feel like, well, I wasn't part of the creation, so therefore I'm not going to be enthusiastically bought into the outcome.
Mm, absolutely. So a lot of what we talked about today is, do you think that instead of just getting the people in a room and saying, hey, that's my plan, you should have a lot of one-to-one talks before you actually get the senior leadership team together? Basically talk to them one by one, see who's probably a bit more challenging, who's a bit more on board. And once you got the buy-in of each and every one of them, then you bring the big group and then from there you take, which is of course a lot more effort.
It is. If it's a very meaningful outcome, then I would be seeking buy-in early so that I'm not dealing with the resistance in public.
Mm,
So ideally, I would get enough buy-in. For example, if it's an organizational strategic uh, initiative that we're pursuing, ideally all my senior leadership team would be bought into that.
yeah.
And whatever concerns they had, they were able to address them either one on one with the CEO or in the group, and the group had enough trust that everyone was willing to express their observations without fear of reprisal. And
Hmm.
then from there, if we can't get everybody to agree, then to the extent that you want to move forward and use a simple quorum, I guess you can, but you know now that these other people are going to have to be brought along. And I would
Yeah.
then be coming back around behind and going, okay, I understand you got some concerns here. I'm trying to move in this direction. What is it that you really feel what is your objection to this? Help me understand your position. So that would be my approach, is to
Yeah.
try and get them to express their position thoughtfully.
Absolutely. We see you have a lot of experience in this field, and some people might now think, I think before we move in, maybe we should ask Byron what we should do. And of course, my last question for this interview is, when people now think you can help them, how can they reach out to you?
Um, my website is the McFarlandGroup.com. I'm on LinkedIn. That's Byron K. McFarland on LinkedIn. Those are my two mediums. Or you can send me an email at Byron at the McFarlandGroup.com.
Perfect. I think these are brilliant final words. You see, getting buy-in from your senior leadership team, not easy, but it's worth going the full distance. Byron McFarland, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.